Shohei Ohtani saves the Angels season last Thursday. Jared Walsh is a cycle starter on Saturday, and we're going to recap the weekend against the New York Mets. You're locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Those listening on the audio side, thanks for your rate and review. If you haven't done that, you can. We appreciate that. And for those watching on the video side, thank you for your subscriptions and being notified. And you can do that right now. So when a new episode drops, you will be tuned in to us. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, more odds, and more lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Angels. You got the Frisch Brothers, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros with you. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
And we're so excited to be celebrating the losing streak is over, Mike. It's done. Shohei saved us. Shohei Ohtani is the one who carried the team on his back on Thursday night, and he saved us. Now, some of you might be wondering, why didn't you talk about this on Friday? And because of scheduling stuff, we had to do our show before the Thursday night game. And the way the baseball gods work is that they didn't want our shows to line up correctly. And you and I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. You know what? We'll take it because a win is a win is a win, especially after a losing streak like that.
No kidding.
And I can't even remember how miserable I've been over the last few games compared to this year, compared to other years, because I just can't remember a time where it's been that hard to be a fan. And so for those fans that have hung in there and those fans that actually started watching and listening and cheering the Angels on during that losing streak, like, you get a gold star or maybe a scratch and sniff sticker, because man, it was so hard to watch. And then when Shohei came through against the Red Sox last Thursday, not just pitching, John, but hitting as well. That was a night that we would never forget. And even if the Angels struggle after that, it was just great to get the monkey off our back.
No kidding. Now, you might be here wondering, what happened to Monday Mailbag? Well, we moved that back. We're going to do that tomorrow's episode. We just wanted to make sure that we got a chance to talk about the big win on Thursday and celebrate the fact that the losing streak was over. And I know that we won 1 and lost 2 against the Mets, and we'll talk about that later. But like you said, having that monkey, the rally monkey off your back, it just feels so good to have that done. Let's talk about Shohei from the hitting side, Mike. He went 2 for 4 with a home run and 2 RBIs. He got that offense started on Thursday. And of course, Squid followed up with that 3-run home run, which you and I have been talking about. Squid stopped swinging for the fences every at bat. And I mean, I guess not one time out of 100 times, it's got to work, right?
It's got to go over.
One of those times, and it went over. So we were happy that he was able to get that home run. But the pitching side for Shohei Ohtani was masterful. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 run, and 6 Ks, 100 pitches thrown. Here's the kicker. 18 swings and misses, 10 ground ball outs. And then you had an interesting stat, Mike. Why don't you lay that upon us?
So there's another new stat, and I'm a stat nerd, and so I love this one. It's base out runs saved. So this stat actually measures how many times Shohei saved a run based upon how many runners got on. And so his stat was 2.7 that night. So essentially, he saved almost 3 runs. And what was the difference in the game? 3 runs.
3 runs.
And so having Shohei on the mound was incredible.
I had another stat too. 55% of his matchups against opposing hitters started with a first pitch strike. 55% of the time. And that's what you want to see from your starting pitcher. And you and I have pressed that home a million times. First pitch strikes. And that's exactly what Shohei was cooking on Thursday night. So that was great to see.
Yeah. And we've given this stat before, but it just is worth repeating. You get a first pitch strike, the opposing OPS is 400. You get a first pitch ball, the opposing OPS is 800. So there is a there's 400-point difference in getting a first pitch strike or a first pitch ball. And so Shohei proved again why he is the ace of this staff. And when he gets the swings and misses, that's when you know that Shohei Ohtani is on, because they're chasing pitches. Most of those were out of the strike zone.
Yeah.
And so it goes to show, like, it's starting in a hittable spot and then it's moving away or it's moving in, and he's really fooling those batters. So my question to you, John, something to noodle on, is this the type of start that Shohei should give the Angels every single time, especially during a losing streak, because this is what aces do? Or do you think that is that too much to ask or too much to expect? Are we wanting him to be the unicorn, but unicorn on steroids? Unicorn bigger than a unicorn, right?
Look, I think that he could have ended things in New York if the Yankees weren't pulling an Astros at Yankee Stadium. I'm convinced that something weird was going on there, because the more I think about it, I mean, you think about Matt Carpenter, all of a sudden he's great again.
Yeah.
And he's swinging at 101 at the ankles, and he caught up to it. From Shohei. Remember that?
Yep.
And look, I'm not going to point any fingers.
Something's fishy.
Something's fishy going on in Yankee Stadium, because the same thing happened to Syndergaard. They knew what was coming. They knew what was coming from Shohei.
Right.
So listen, this is a perfect slump busting performance from Shohei Ohtani. And I would venture to say that, yes, we 100% needed this from him. Does he need to give this every time? No, because he's proved before that even if he has an okay start, he keeps the Halos in the game. And that's what's key. The offense should come through for him if he's able to keep it at 3 runs or less. And that's typically what Shohei Ohtani is doing. I don't think that we need to see this kind of expert outing from him every single time, but gosh dang, it was good to see. And gosh dang, it was great to get us out of that slump. He is the one who saved us from 15 losses.
Right.
Single-handedly, pretty much.
Yeah, he won that game by himself. And it looks like, they haven't announced it yet, but it looks like his next start is going to be against the Los Angeles Dodgers on Thursday at Dodger Stadium. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
What does a successful night look like for Shohei? What does he need to do, in your opinion?
Keeping those walks down. And we know that when he's not walking guys, it's usually when he's on his game.
Yep.
And if he's able to prevent runners from getting on via the walk, then Shohei is going to have a lot of success. And again, if people aren't reading his pitches and if he's not tipping, I know that was the suggestion that he was tipping, but if he is able to fool batters the way that he did against Boston, then I think that he's going to give us something special. I think a minimum of 6 innings would be phenomenal, especially against the Dodgers. And you know what else is nice, Mike? The DH is now in the National League, and so he can hit and pitch at Dodger Stadium and stay in the game, even when he's done on the mound. And, that's a big reason why I thought he could replicate a lot of what he did last year, because based on the number of times we faced the NL, he's got at least, 50 more plate appearances than he did last season because he couldn't appear in those NL games. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him at Dodger Stadium and what he can do.
I think that a key for him against the Dodgers actually is on the offensive side. If the Angels can actually get a couple of runs early, I feel like that changes how Shohei approaches the batters.
100%.
He doesn't have to be so fine, and he actually will throw some pitches in the zone that maybe are hittable, but then it gives him the opportunity, maybe the privilege of throwing some of those pitches that bounce before they even get to the plate. And people are swinging at those things because they're pressing. You felt like the Red Sox were doing that last Thursday, and there was a couple of times where they were swinging and missing, and he was bouncing pitches up there, and all of them were looking like they were going to be hittable, and then they disappeared. And I feel like Shohei does so much better when the Angels actually spot him a couple of runs, and he has even said he loves when he's hitting and pitching in the same game, especially if he gets down, because he's confident that he can help himself out by knocking in a few runs. And what I loved about him on Thursday is that he did the things that we hadn't seen from Shohei so far this year, especially during the losing streak. He went oppo. He actually made contact and went to left field, and it was smooth. It was
Yeah.
when his hips don't open up, you look out.
That's
because
exactly right.
that's when he is reading and timing the ball really, really well.
Yeah. You know what I really thought was cool was when he hit the home run, he put on the cowboy hat and did the thing, but he had the most serious look on his face that
Yes,
I
he
think I've
did.
ever
Yep.
seen. And then as soon as he was at the end of the aisle, he took it off and sat down, and
Yeah.
that dude was in focus mode.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't mess with Shohei right now because he is on fire. He's a
Yeah.
dog.
You know what that moment was that's the touchdown in a game where you're down by 21 points, right?
Yeah.
And now you're down by 14 and you're not celebrating. You're excited, but you're not celebrating. I felt
Right.
like Shohei read the room and lived in that moment. He's going to celebrate, but it wasn't exuberant like it was because you had lost 14 games in a row and the game wasn't over yet. Shohei's like, we're going to get a win.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on my back. I'm the unicorn. Hang on to my horn, right?
Saddle up.
Well, we got more coming up on Locked On Angels. We're going to recap the weekend series against the New York Mets. But first, Locked On Angels is brought to you by Athletic Greens.
Yes, it is. Athletic Greens is going to be here to help you take ownership of your health, and they're going to help you get started with AG1. It's a supplement that actually tastes great and includes 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It's an all-in-one blend right there. AG1 costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit and healthier too. It's also cheaper than buying all the different supplements that your body needs separately. This is an all-in-one nutritional investment. So if you care about your health, go to athleticgreens.com today and start choosing better health. And when you do, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/MLB network, and take ownership of your health today.
And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. And once we're done here, check out the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. It starts June 16th and includes over 50 insiders predicting who will be drafted and to what team they will be drafted to. So check out the Locked On NBA podcast and hear from big board draft experts, plus the Odyssey insiders. The first pick is June 16th. You can search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so that you don't miss a pick.
Mike, on Saturday night, we had Walshamania Cycle Edition.
Yep.
Jared Walsh, the cycle maker.
Not the cycle breaker.
Yes, his first time hitting for the cycle. And he actually came close last year, if you remember, but he didn't get the triple. And after the game, he said, I don't think I'm ever going to get a cycle because I'm never going to get a triple.
I feel like every MLB player probably feels that way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hardest hitting baseball.
In fact, I think Phil Nevin said after the game when he was being interviewed, did you ever hit for the cycle? He said, no way. I could never get that triple. Come on.
Nah, Phil struggled getting doubles.
Right? On Saturday, Jared Walsh finally got the cycle, and that was on top of a night that saw 2 Mike Trout home runs.
Yeah.
Saw Shohei hit a home run, Andrew Velasquez hit another home run, and then a great pitching performance from Michael Lorenzen and Jared Walsh being awesome on defense in that game as well. And when he finally got that cycle, he said that when the ball got to center field, he said, all right, legs, let's see what we've got left in there, because you saw their center fielder, Nemo, dive out for it. And it just went right past him. So it was really awesome to see Jared Walsh get that. And he goes down as the 9th cycle in Angels history.
Wow.
In fact, the only person to get 2 for the Angels was Jim Fregrossi, which I didn't realize. So that's pretty cool. But he joins Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani and Sean Figgins too, right?
Yeah, and that Hall of Famer Jeff Devanna.
Oh, him too.
One of those names from the past that's
right.
played every once in a while that would be annoying. Remember him? But then he hits for the cycle and you're like, well, I can't be mad at him now.
Right. I can't get mad at him.
Yeah. We've been really impressed actually with Walsh. You and I have talked a lot about Walsh, especially over the last 2 weeks. No matter how bad it got, it really felt like Walsh was present. It
Yeah.
felt like he was playing hard. I know he had a couple of really tough games, couple over fives. He struck out 4 times in one of those games, but he's been playing really strong on both sides of the ball. And here again is a stat for Walsh, and what happened on Saturday is pretty remarkable. So the base out runs added stat, again, stat nerd here. This measures how many runs the Angels were up due to Walsh's performance. And so Walsh had a 2.4. So he actually added almost 2.5 runs in that game based upon his performance, based upon how he was hitting. And so, John, you're a big fan of using the phrase sneaky good.
Sneaky good.
Is Walsh still sneaky good, or are fans, not just Angel fans, but MLB fans, are they starting to notice just how good he actually is?
Well, if they haven't noticed by now, then they're missing out, because
For sure.
remember that fantastic play he made in left field during the All-Star game? I can't imagine being a fan of another team and being like, who was that guy? Where did he come from?
Right.
And never having seen Jared Walsh. Maybe you're a National League fan and the Angels haven't come through your town, or your team hasn't come through Anaheim. But man, I think that the rest of Major League Baseball needs to catch up to the fact that Jared Walsh, he was an all-star last season. He should be an all-star again this season. And I hope he gets voted in, because he's doing some incredible things at first base defensively. And then you and I have talked about it a lot. He feels clutch. And I know he's not going to hit a home run every single time, but man, he has come through so many times for this team. And like you said, even while we were struggling, it seemed like he was the one who was calm and collected, and he wasn't pressing. And I know he had some difficult nights where he didn't get any hits or anything, but when he did get some hits, they were productive and they were adding to our runs and they were keeping us in the game. And even though we dropped 14 in a row, it felt like he was the one who cared the most and was really picking up his teammates like Mike Trout, because he was the one producing when we needed to. And I think afterward, when he got that cycle and he talked to Erica Weston on the broadcast, the TV broadcast, you could just see how humble he is.
Yes.
And if he sticks around with this team, and perhaps even past the years that Mike Trout is here, which I'm sure their contracts will, end around the same time if arbitration runs out, and then I hope that they extend him. He needs to be here. But what I'm getting at is I want to see him be a locker room leader. He seems to be a fantastic voice. He's our union rep for the Angels.
Yep.
And he had some great comments over the lockout situation where he said, you know what, I sat back and kind of observed everything and took in and listened to some of the veterans who've been around the block, and I learned a lot. And I kind of wonder if he has that same attitude in the Angels locker room. But by all accounts, I think that Jared Walsh is no longer sneaky good. I think people should start taking notice. But what do you think?
Well, it's still a classic line from Dan Patrick. He is gritty. He's gutty. He's that type of guy that you want on your team, right?
Yeah.
And what I love about Walsh is that he is one that you can count on. And there's this assumption as fans that the highest paid player or the best performing player always has to be the leader. And in most cases, that's true. But Walsh feels like the type of guy on a team that isn't necessarily going to be the one that's always going to put up the greatest stats. And on this team, that's almost going to be impossible with Trout and with Ohtani. But he has that leadership mentality about him. And if they have captains, he should be the captain. And I think if you actually talk about the Angels, his name has to be pushing to the top. Obviously, you're going to start with Trout, maybe even start with Ohtani over Trout because of how well-known Ohtani is. But I think Walsh, he's got that Freddie Freeman-esque vibe to him, right?
Yeah.
And Freddie Freeman wasn't really well-known in Atlanta, although he was a Braves brave, right? And even with the Dodgers, he's a Dodgers guy, but you probably don't think about him first, but because he's on that team, you know that team isn't going to sink too far. And that's how I feel about Jared Walsh, especially at first base. And before this losing streak, I was convinced that one of the best moves we could make is to get somebody to back him up, because at this point, he is your first baseman, and he has saved a ton of runs over there because of the throws. But I don't see anybody coming in to replace him that's going to fill in, not just offensively, but defensively. Now, we had the losing streak, and we find ourselves a few games under 500. I think that the priority shifts, and we don't necessarily need somebody to back him up. But if we end up winning some games again, I think that needs to be something outside of pitching that the Angels should look at, because he needs somebody to step in every once in a while to give him a break. But also, we need somebody over there that's going to wear their yoga pants and be able to make those catches, because Walshy has saved so many runs and he's gotten so many outs because of his stretching ability, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a much different game if Jared Walsh is not over there at first base. And so I think it's important that he's in there as much as possible and that there's somebody who can back him up to live up to his reputation at first base. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, Locked On Angels is brought to you by BetOnline. Our friends at betonline.net are your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports development, the news, odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, NHL hockey conference finals, and of course, Major League Baseball, and all the fighting news, MMA, UFC, and even boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline is where the game starts.
Well, Mike, after we finally snap our losing streak, we only have to take on the best team in the National League in the New York Mets.
It feels so unfair because
luck.
we've been playing all of these really, really difficult teams. And if you look at our record against teams over 500, it's not good. Our record against teams under 500, we're a few games over 500, but against teams above 500 or better, we are like 7 or 8 games under 500. And then, of course, we're in the midst of this losing streak. We finally get a win, and then, hey, guess what? The best team in the National League is coming into town, and and we have to play them. And it started on Friday.
And then you got to play the second best National League team in the Dodgers coming up here soon. We're going to talk about that series tomorrow.
We need a break.
Give us a break.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this series because there were some highlights and some lowlights. But why don't you start us with Friday's game?
Well, the highlight in Friday's game, after like a 7-3 loss for the Mets, the thing that we could celebrate was Brandon Marsh. He hit 2 home runs in that game and looked really, really good. Marsh is really coming into his own. And I'm really glad that we've given him an opportunity to start in the outfield. And this was a tough game on the pitching side. I've been a fan of Jonathan Diaz.
Me too.
But he just looked like he was not going to figure it out. And I think maybe being pulled after 1 2/3 felt a bit quick. But I think in this moment, I wouldn't argue with Nevin and that decision because Diaz really looked like he was struggling. And then he got sent down after the game. And a lot of that wasn't because he struggled. A lot of that was because the Angel needed fresh arms, right?
Exactly.
And then Jimmy Herget comes in and just pitches an inning and a third. I'm sorry, just a third of an inning, and got 1 out and gave up 3 runs and 3 hits. And it really, that's what put the game out of reach. We were close, but it put the game out of reach. And can I just say, can the Angels stop playing national games? Because it seems like anytime we get a national game, remember last year we were on YouTube, the first YouTube game. We got slaughtered in Houston, and then we won the next 2 games, right? And then Friday is the Apple Plus game, and then Sunday is the ESPN game. We never seem to rise to the occasion, and it's hard because it's those games that you want Trout and Ohtani and even Walsh to be noticed and seen as a fan. And we end up just being terrible on those national games. And so I would be okay if we didn't have those because we just don't ever seem to win those games.
I'm fine with being the best kept secret in baseball once we start winning again, because as soon as people start talking about us, like Jeff Passan and Bob Nightingale, like, leave us alone.
Here, raise your right hand. Raise your right hand with me. Everybody watching, listening, raise your right hand. Here we go. I solemnly swear to never, ever complain about us being a secret.
A secret.
Good.
Well done.
All right. Let's talk about Saturday. What happened Saturday? That was the
Saturday.
Fun game,
was the fun game indeed. We won this one 11-6, and there's 2 things that happened before this game that I was not quite a fan of. Well, I should say one thing.
To hear about this, yeah.
Joe Adell was sent down after Friday's game. And Mike, since he's been up with us, he's hit over 300, had a slugging percentage over 300. Like, this guy has been on a tear, and he got sent down, and it was purely because they needed an arm.
Yeah.
And apparently if they let Lagares get sent down, he's got to be released. And so they didn't want to do that. I know, exactly.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
Keep Joe Adell.
Uh-huh.
And so that's so frustrating because we wanted him to be up with his team. And then what are you supposed to do when you're tearing it up like he was over the past week? And then, oh, by the way, we got to send you down again. Come on. Give me a break.
Well, and it looks like a terrible move because we'll talk about the Sunday's game in a minute, but Tyler Wade played in the outfield on Saturday as he was subbing for Trout. And then Sunday, that's the stuff where I go, what are we doing?
Right.
Why are we doing that? Like, Adell could have played left or right, and you could have had somebody in center field like Marsh maybe. But anyway, I'm stealing your thunder. Go ahead.
Well, look, we brought up Davis Daniel, who is a right-handed pitcher and somebody that is a highly touted prospect for us. He's a great starter, and they brought him up to pitch out of the bullpen. He didn't get into the game, but he is carried on the roster as of right now.
Yeah.
But Marsh led off in this game, which is something you and I have wanted to see, and also wanted to see while Taylor Ward was out. So he immediately showed that he could lead off. He had an 8-pitch walk to start the game, and he ended up with 2 walks in the game. Then he scores from first on an Ohtani double. And like we always say, speed kills and never slumps. As long as you have speed, you have a place in that lineup. The third inning moment was missing previously. Ohtani was put in motion on a Rendon ground out, and that kept the Angels out of a double play. So that's something that we need to see more of and probably didn't see enough of over that losing streak. And then, of course, I mentioned it earlier, Trout had 2 home runs. Ohtani had a home run. Squid, Walsh, they all had home runs. Walsh hit his while the young fans were in the booth.
That was
with
a cool moment.
Gooby and Patrick. That was awesome.
That was rad.
But we have to talk about Jared Walsh hitting for the cycle, of course. Again, he got the single, the double, the home run, and just needed the triple, and it came in his last at bat, which was so cool to see.
And he got it.
And then Michael Lorenzen, we got to talk about him. Biceps Lorenzen. 6 1/3, 6 hits, 1 walk, 4 Ks, 96 pitches thrown, and 9 ground ball outs. That was an incredible performance from him, and that's the guy that we are used to seeing, not like what we saw against the Phillies in that first inning where he gave up 5.
Right.
One thing I wanted to mention was the press conference with Phil Nevin. He said that he talked to Trout about coming out of the game just to give him a little bit more rest, and that's where Tyler Wade stepped into center field. And Trout said, I want to get 2 more runs. I want us to be up 2 more. And at that point, it was like 5-0. And then Nevin said it was actually Trout who got the 2 runs. And so he pulled them out when they were up 8-0.
Yeah.
And I liked that Nevin asked Trout what he wanted to do in that situation. He gave Trout the ability to speak to, hey, I want to get 2 more runs before I come out of this game. And I thought that was really awesome. And I hope that that is reflective of some of the things that we've been seeing so far from Phil Nevin, including like with Suarez getting that last out in Nevin's first game. And so I really appreciated seeing that on Saturday night.
I think that's the benefit of having former players actually manage because they know what it was like. And Phil was never a superstar, but he did have a couple of really big years. One really big year with San Diego, and he had like 43, 48 home runs and over 100 and some odd RBIs. But I like that because he recognizes what the players need, and he's going to ask those questions. I think that there's a benefit there. And then we moved to Sunday, and the game was actually 11-2. We ended up winning 11-6. And the reason why it was 11-6 was Ollie Ortega really struggled.
But I have to say, like, it was 11-3, and it was fine because Ortega was struggling, and Nevin let him finish it.
Yes.
And that's what I was like, it sucks that we didn't win 11-3. It doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
But he let Ortega figure it out.
He let him figure it out.
I was glad that he was sent down the next day, though, because Austin Warren came back.
I was excited about that. I did yell at the TV and say, come on, Ollie, throw a strike. Like, get out. It's 11-3. Like, let's figure it out, right? and Marsh led off on the game on Sunday, by the way, and he started things off with a double, and then Trout immediately singles him in, and the Angels are up 1-0. And then after that, Ukaipa boy, Taijuan Walker shuts us down. And here's what I noticed. Walker really struggled in that first inning. And David Cohn was actually in the booth for ESPN. He gave a shout out to Gooby, by the way. I don't know if you heard that.
I heard that.
And he said he's really missing. He's really missing his spots, and he's overthrowing. And then the second inning happened.
Yeah.
And David said, somebody talk to him, because his whole demeanor and his whole like mechanics and everything that he was doing was completely different. And this is something you and I've talked about often on Locked On Angels. We don't ever see that, or at least hardly see that with the Angels, right?
Yeah.
We don't see somebody making an adjustment and then all of a sudden, whoa, somebody talked to him and figured it out, right?
Yeah.
Especially even if, let's say the Yankees were getting tipped by the pitches, right? Like was there not a conversation?
There
And if there was a conversation, let's say there was, didn't do anything, did it?
Right.
And so that's the thing that I get really concerned about with the Angels coaching staff.
Yeah.
You don't see that too often.
Right.
And it's frustrating. And Walker, God bless him, pitched really well, struck out 10. We struck out 16 times, by the way, on Sunday.
I know. Well, and that's the thing, is he had not a great strikeout rate coming into the game this season. And we certainly helped that out because he got 10 Ks on us in that game on Sunday night.
Well, and that game being a loss was such a bummer because your boy Sandy pitched really well.
That's right.
6 innings, 8 hits, 2 runs, 8 Ks, and
20 swings and misses, by the way.
And that's a winning combination, right? But we
100%.
just, again, either we pitch really well or we hit really well, but we don't do both. And I know that we're coming off this losing streak. I'll take 2 and 4 since Nevin took over, and I'll take that. However, I just think that we're in a position where we have to do something, and we have to do something soon, because right now we're 29 and 33. We have a day off today, and then we got the Dodgers, and that's going to be a tough series for us.
Yeah, 2 games against the Dodgers, and then we go up to Seattle to take on the Mariners for the first time this season, because we were supposed to see them in week 1, but that got pushed back. And so I think that we have a doubleheader against them.
We do. We got 5 games against them this weekend. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
For someone, maybe not us, but we'll see. You know what, though? It's a prove it series, because we have to win those games against the AL West. That's what matters at the end of the day. And I believe, I'm just going off the top of my head here, but I believe the Astros schedule gets a little bit more difficult and starts to look more like what we've been dealing with for the last few weeks. So I'm hoping that maybe we can gain some ground, if not there, then in the wild card race, because we're not totally out of that 3rd wild card spot just yet.
Well, we really appreciate you making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, and make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast with MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan. He's hilarious. John got to hang out with him the week that Joe got fired, and he is all over the place and funny and passionate. He's got a unique perspective on every team, and he really focuses in on particular stories that are happening around the league. So follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I want to say thanks for everybody who participated in our City Connect sticker giveaway. Check what I have here, Mike, on YouTube. If you're listening or if you're watching on the video side, I got these amazing stickers here.
Oh, those look great.
Oh yeah.
Look at that. Yeah. Did you get my retweet? Did I win?
You're not allowed. But listen, I want to say thank you for everybody who participated in the City Connect sticker giveaway. It was a lot of fun, and we're going to be announcing those today. So be sure that you check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Angels, and of course on Instagram and Twitter at Super Halo Bros. So that way we can get these to you if you are one of our winners. And again, thanks so much for being part of it. It was a lot of fun.
Tomorrow on Locked On Angels, we're actually going to do Mailbag Tuesday.
Yes.
And we're going to answer all of your questions. You can get into our voicemail. The number is actually in the description, so you can check that out. If you're watching on YouTube, it's up on the screen right now, 714-409-6396. John and I will answer all of your Halo questions, and we're excited about that conversation. One of our favorite segments on Locked On Angels.
That's right. All right. Until tomorrow's episode, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
And we'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Angels.